Welcome. I'm Robin, your host for today's virtual adoption fair. I'm a Mikaboo volunteer, just like all of the people presenting and producing today's event. Before we begin, let me tell you just a little bit about Mickaboo Companion Bird Rescue. We are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to education about care for companion birds and to their rescue and adoption. We are a virtual, volunteer-based organization with over 450 birds in our care and no paid staff. We rely on donations to be able to serve the birds, and the vast majority of our expenses are related to their care. Our veterinary bills estimate about $40,000 to $50,000 a month. These costs are so high for a couple of reasons. One, newly rescued birds may require medical attention due to previous neglect, failing health, accidents, and trauma accrued during time of strays, or even injury from other pets. Two, some of our birds have chronic medical conditions, and those birds tend to remain in foster care or hospice situations for long periods of time. So if you are able to help, please consider donating. I'll provide some information on how to donate at the end of this event. Now, let's talk for a moment about the adoption and foster process. After all, this is an adoption fair. Though fostering is a volunteer activity and adoption is, we hope, a permanent process, the process to become qualified to do either is the same. And if you foster, you can adopt your foster bird at any time. First, the timing. Since we are an all-volunteer organization, and because we want to be really careful about the well-being of the birds, the process can take a while. It's not as simple as going to the shelter, picking out a dog, and going home with the dog on the same day. It takes several weeks to get through the process, and it is multi-stage. We really want to ensure that we get to know you, your situation, are able to review what we learned carefully, and can help you make an educated decision about the kind of bird that's right for you. It can take 8 to 10 weeks or sometimes even longer for some birds. Please be patient. The results are really worth it. And if you feel like you haven't heard from us, please do let us know. Sometimes things accidentally dropped and the reminders are welcome and helpful. So let's talk a bit about the process in depth. You start out with the basic bird care class because parrots are not simple beings to care for, and they require a lot from their human companions. We cover parrot behavior, health and well-being, feeding, care, and other topics to ensure that our birds will be able to thrive in their new homes. You'll get a taste of those considerations as you meet birds in their foster homes today. After taking the class and filling out an application, you'll be ready for the next step, a phone screen. This is the opportunity for us to better understand you, what you're looking for, and your understanding of birds and bird care. It's also a great opportunity to have the ear of a Mikaboo volunteer so you can ask their questions directly. Then comes the home visit. With COVID-19, we do these virtually over a video session. It's not a white glove test. We want to see and help you identify potential dangers in your home, what good options there are for cage placements, and those sorts of things. We'll want to see any birds you currently have, any cages, and see the parts of your house where the bird would be. Finally, we'll work with you to find the specific Mikaboo bird or birds that are a good match for you. Like the home visit, we've made some modifications to this step for COVID-19. You may meet birds via Zoom rather than in person. This can give you a great advantage of seeing how the birds behave in their current home without strangers present. In some cases, we may also be able to arrange outdoor, socially distant visit with the bird that you're interested in and their foster parent. The bird will, of course, be in their cage or a secure carrier for the meeting. The specific arrangements really depend on what you and the foster home are comfortable with. When it's time to transfer the bird, we're going to be doing no-touch handoffs, where the person transporting the bird will set the carrier down and step away, and then the adopter, or new foster parent if you're fostering, will bring the bird inside and then bring the empty carrier back outside. Any help with the cage transport is also done without entering the home. So, without any further ado, let's meet 7 of our Mikaboo birds who are going to be seeking their forever homes at today's adoption fair. In order today, you're going to meet Artichoke and Parsnip, 2 budgies, Kelly, an Amazon, Luxa and Huevo, parakeets, Penelope, a single budgie, and Coco, a dusky conure. So let's just hop right over. Peggy, are you there right now?
I am here.
Hi. So I see 2 birds up there. What can you tell us about Artichoke and Parsnip?
Well, Artichoke and Parsnip came to me last October from an aviary rescue, and you can tell by the names that they were part of a large group of vegetable birds. And I originally had 8 of them, and these are the last 2. And due to their coloring, I suspect they may very well be brothers. And I think they're males because there used to be a third bird with them who they got very protective of and started showing mating behaviors. And as soon as she's been removed, things have calmed down and gone back to normal. So the usual way we would determine gender for budgies with the color of the cere and that type of thing, because of their coloring, that doesn't work. So at this point, I'm making the determination that they're probably male, and they seem to be very happy together, and all that behavioral stuff has calmed down. So I may very well be right.
I guess we'll find out. And before we go any further, I do want to say, as we go, if you have any questions about any of the birds, whether Artichoke and Parsnip or any of the birds who come after, please type them into the Q&A tab in Zoom, or if you're watching via Facebook, you can ask by commenting on the video live stream there. That way we can address the questions as we go, just as we're going through and doing the interview. So I know you've talked a little bit about them just with that third bird. So are they a pair? Would they have to be adopted together, or?
I don't think they would have to be adopted together. It's not like they preen each other or do any of those other bonded behaviors. But I think it would probably be nice if they could stay together after what they've been through. And it would also, like, if we're wrong and one of them might not be a girl, or, if they might not both be boys, which I doubt, it might just be better to keep them together. And they've been through a lot, from the aviary rescue to seeing everybody else be adopted, and they seem to be pretty good buddies. So I would say they could be adopted separately, but I'd kind of like to see them go together.
Okay. And I am seeing some green in the upper left. Is that some food?
Oh, yes, that is food. So these guys do pretty well. They eat lettuce, kale. The stuff hanging from the top of the cage is cilantro. One of my personal favorites because it makes the house smell good. And on the other side, the far side of the cage where there's a lower perch, there you have a piece of broccoli. And when we were preparing for this, I said, oh, they don't like broccoli. Well, guess what? They do. So it's how I displayed it. So they like it hooked onto the side of the cage, and they will lean over and nibble at it. So they do pretty good with that. And then they also eat Nutri-An cakes, and they eat a little bit of pellet and a little bit of seed. And for on occasion, or for training type things, a little bit of millet.
It's always really nice seeing that birds are getting a nice varied diet. Are these two hand tame?
No, they're not. And that's probably why they're still with me. From this aviary rescue, there were a couple who would come right away up to the bars of the cage and eat millet or broccoli from my hand. They got adopted right away, but these two are a lot shyer. I think they were a little older than the other ones were as well. So they are definitely not hand tame. And when we had the third bird in the cage with them, and I had to take one of these guys out because they were getting real possessive of her, and they were starting to go at it together. They're still calming down, and I'm not 100% trustworthy still.
Yeah, it makes sense. We did have an audience member who wanted to know, could we get a little bit more on the backstory of the birds? I know you mentioned an aviary rescue. What's the story on that? And if you were interested...
Mikaboo
No, keep going. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. So there was, Mikaboo was contacted in the fall of last year, and there was an aviary that had, I think it was something like 30 some odd budgies, 40 some odd finch, and a couple of other birds that needed to be rehomed. And so Mickaboo volunteers went in and captured the birds, put them in smaller cages. They went to the vet for checks, and then went to foster homes. So out of those, I was going to go pick up 3 or 4 birds, and I came home with 2 cages and 8.
I really wish it was more uncommon for us to have these large aviary rescues, but they do happen. We often get, and we're actually going to put a video link in the chat specifically on the rescue that Artichoke and Parsnip are from, if anyone is a little bit curious about how something like that works, how it all works down. And right here, this is, you're kind of seeing the end stage of an aviary rescue once they're safely in foster homes, are getting on a good diet, and are hopefully going off to forever home soon. I do see some toys. Do they have any toys they particularly like?
Yeah. So they like their swings. They have 2 swings in this cage. They have a mirror that is on a plastic ring, and both of them pivot. And it's funny to watch them because one will get up on perch on top and one will get on the perch below it. And then sometimes one of the birds disappears and he climbs between the 2 rings. But they don't fight over it. It's like they're sharing their toy. It's really cute to watch. And then at dinner the other night, they're on my dining room table. They were, so we were eating in the kitchen, and I heard this funny noise that kind of went, and it was like, my goodness, what was that noise? And I look, my dog's, right there. It wasn't him. And I hear it again. And they have a little toy that has a mirror on it, and it's got handles like it's a clock. And it makes that noise when they spin the handles. And I don't know that they've ever done it before. And so it was really funny. So they've got a new one there to play with. And then they've got rings. And they've got another one with the mirror on it. So they spend a little time playing with the mirrors, but since they have each other, they also aren't like dependent on it. Like if you had a single budgie, you'd give them a mirror so they'd have a companion. Because we like our budgies as part of a flock, and that would mimic it. But so they do play with the mirrors a little bit, but they really like the rings and this other spinning thing.
Yeah, so something of note that you just touched on very briefly, budgies are very flock oriented. At a minimum, we really do want them in pairs. Like if you already have a budgie and you want a companion, you can adopt a single budgie. But if you don't have any other birds, we do generally require you to have to adopt at least 2 budgies. That said, I did want to ask, do they need any special care or have any special requirements?
The only thing really for budgies is that when you choose a cage, you really want to have a cage that's longer than tall. If you can do it, the longer the better, because that way they can fly. I grew up with the cage that was round and fit in a corner of the room, and that was what you bought in those days. And now I know better that you want to have a longer cage so that they can actually fly in it. And so these 2 are actually in a flight cage. It's about 40 some odd inches tall. There's just enough room above it that I can cover them at night and not hit my chandelier. And actually it's a new chandelier, and that was how we figured out where to put it, was I needed to be able to cover a bird cage. So this cage is about, like I said, 40 something inches high. It's about 40 something inches long and about 18 to 20 inches wide.
That sounds like a really nice cage for them, and it seems like they're enjoying it, because I know during setup they were flying right through along, and now of course they decide to sit perfectly still.
And the other thing in this cage that's great is that they've got one of those Boeing perches that's like a spiral, and that provides endless amusement as well as access from A to B without having to go back and forth.
So before, I think we're about wrapped up here. So before we go on to see another bird, do you have any fun stories about these 2?
I think they're starting to really come out of their shell since they don't have a female to argue over, and they're together. And it's funny when they start talking, one of them gets this really blocky little head and he chatters away and like he's the boss and he knows everything. But it's funny because when I talk to them, the other one will tilt his head like he's really, really listening to what I have to say. And it's just funny watching the personalities of them starting to really come out. And this has been, what, eight months maybe now since I've had them. And I think without the others around, their true personalities are really starting to show. Actually, they're listening to me now.
That honestly sounds fantastic. So thank you very much, Peggy. And we are going to hop over to Shauna, who is going to be talking about a video of Kelly and Amazon. Hi, Shauna.
Hi, Robin.
So what can you tell me about Kelly?
Well, Kelly is a 35-year-old male blue front Amazon. He had one previous owner who had him for 30 years of his life and loved him dearly, no doubt, but became ill to the point where she could no longer take care of Kelly. So she made the heart-wrenching decision to surrender him to Mickaboo.
That is always a little bit sad to hear when someone who has loved a bird for so long is no longer able to care for them. So I know you said they were 35. Do we know their gender, and do we know their gender for sure? Because a lot of birds, there's no way to know for sure without testing.
Yes, that is true. We don't always know for sure. Kelly, so far in the 5 years that he's been with Mickaboo, has not, has not laid an egg. So we're pretty sure he's not a female. And
so probably a male.
Yes, so most likely there's a pretty good indication that he's a male.
Okay, so we see them interacting with their foster. Do they have a gender preference? Do they prefer men over women, or are they about even for both?
I would say about even. He interacts more with the foster dad, but he does allow the foster mom to give him scritches on the head. So he doesn't seem to show a strong preference for a man or a woman.
That's always a really nice sign when they're willing to let you scratch their head a little bit. And I'll remind people, if you do have any questions, just go down to the Q&A tab and feel free to ask away. We'll be able to get these things. We did have someone actually ask, how long do Amazons live generally?
Well, Amazons can live to be about 60 to 80 years old. So
wow.
Kelly, although around 35, he is not, he's not considered an old man. He's not a young bird, but he still has quite a few years. Yes, he still has quite a few years ahead of him.
Oh yeah. So what does Kelly eat exactly?
Kelly is on a diet of Harrison's pellets. He likes his Nutriberry or nutrient cake as the occasional treat. He does eat his veggies and fruits. The only thing his foster dad notes that Kelly doesn't seem to have too much of a preference for are berries. But, it's always good to keep offering him different fruits and vegetables with more emphasis on the vegetables than the fruits, and see what he takes a liking to. He could change and like something at one point and then not the other. So it's always good to keep trying to offer it to him.
Are there any treats in particular that Kelly really likes?
Well, as mentioned, his Nutriberry and his nutrient cake are kind of his treats. So Amazons can also usually like a nut as a treat, like an almond, a lower fat nut than a walnut. So maybe a almond or a small piece of pecan might be a good treat for him.
So I know we saw him step up onto hands a little bit earlier, but are they tame?
That would be a yes and a no for Kelly. Kelly is a pretty easygoing bird, but he's not very snuggly. He will step up on occasion. As you can see, he has a bell toy there that you can kind of see. He does love his bell toys. In fact, he's a little over obsessed with them. He'll even try to feed them by regurgitating if you have them in his cage, and he talks to them. So the vets recommended that to really try to steer him towards other toys, and his foster dad doesn't put those bell toys inside of his cage. Instead, he uses them for outside, as you can see, or to get him to step up onto the arm, because he really will pretty much do anything once you have a bell toy in hand.
I know you mentioned briefly that he talks to them. Does Kelly talk or just chatter at them?
Yes, well, he does both, actually. He says things like good morning. He says hello, and one other thing he says, but he also does this really cute little chattering thing. So sometimes when birds are talkers like that, they tend to do that more than their normal Amazon sounds. But of course, Amazons can be very loud. They are loud on the noise scale. So I'm sure has his moments where he does that. But as you can see in this video, you can get him to engage and play. He's not, the nice thing about Kelly is that he's not an overly, he's not a bird that it requires a huge amount of attention. He doesn't have to be at your side all the time. He's happy with ambient attention and the occasional, attention. So,
Oh, I see.
and
We're seeing him getting a bath.
he's getting his shower, which is also a very, very good thing for our birdies. Kelly
Seems to be
does,
enjoying it.
yes. Kelly does was also recommended to have a nice misting to keep his sinuses nice and clear. So the frequent showers are good. And here in the video, you can see that how the foster dad uses that bell toy to keep Kelly's attention, get him onto the arm. Although Kelly is a pretty laid back bird, we like folks to keep in mind that it's a good idea for adopters to have experience with Amazon body language and their potential to be feisty. They can get overstimulated easy, and that can turn into a bite. So it's really good to have somebody that has experience with that. As you can see right there, he liked his head scratches for a little bit, but then he can turn
Then
right around.
changed his mind.
Second and say, nope, I don't like it anymore.
So maybe not a first time bird for someone who doesn't have any sort of bird experience, but
yeah.
Someone did ask, do we know the last time that Kelly went to an avian vet? I don't think he's gone to one while he's been with Mikaboo, but did he go to one before they were surrendered?
Actually, he has been to one since he's trained Mikaboo.
Oh,
and yes, Kelly has been to a vet, and that's going to lead into another question I'm sure you were going to ask me.
Yep.
Kelly on any medications? And the answer is yes. Kelly was quite overweight when he came to us, and he has, the vet feels that he's probably developing some arthritis. So he is on meloxicam to help with that, to help with the symptoms, and he gets that twice a day. It's an oral medication, so there's no injections needed. The foster dad says he takes it pretty well when you put it onto a banana chip for him, or sometimes you can put it on food and he'll take it easily. So that's the only thing that, and as you can see there goes that when he doesn't want to step up, he certainly makes it known, as you can see there.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I'm not going to step up. But then on that day, hold on, I will step up. Show me my bell.
And there you go. Yep.
Oh,
he changed his mind.
Oh yeah, they're very wily. Let's go with that. Wily.
Yes. Exactly.
So aside from the medication, do they need a special cage or anything like that? Any sort of specialized setup?
No, he does not require any special setup. Just nice for his perches, just to have a nice variety of perches so that his feet can get some exercise and that he's comfortable.
Yeah, so it sounds like aside from some very special banana chips, he doesn't really require any special care. So before we hop over to the next birds, do you have any fun stories about Kelly?
Yes, I was talking earlier about how he likes to chatter, and it's a really, really cute thing. The foster dad says that for those who can remember the Charlie Brown cartoons, where when the adults talk, it sounds like wah 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 wah. So Kelly will go into this little cute chattering thing where he's talking to himself, or when he has his little bell, he'll talk to his little bell and does that cute little, you can't make out what he's saying, but you just say, uh-huh, okay. He just keeps right on
He's
chattering.
definitely
It's really
talking.
cute.
I don't know
Really
what he's
cute.
saying, but he's talking.
Yes, exactly. It's adorable.
All right. Thank you very much, Shauna. And we are going to hop over and meet Luxa and Huevo, who are another pair of budgies being fostered by Natasha. Hi, Natasha.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So what can you tell me about Luxa and Huevo?
Both Huevo and Luxa, they came from the Santa Cruz Animal Shelter. Huevo came to us in late September and Luxa joined us in late February.
So first question is, which one is which? Because I see two very different looking budgies in there.
Huevo is the green one and Luxa is the pale yellow one, and she has blue on her tummy.
Oh, that sounds like quite an interesting coloration. So they are both strays who came in through the animal shelter, which is not uncommon. It happens quite a bit. Do we know their genders?
Well, we're not quite sure, but we think that Huevo is a male and Luxa is a female.
Okay. And we don't know how old they are, but do you think they're older birds or younger birds?
I'm not sure about Huevo. I'm thinking he might be a little bit older, a few years at least. Luxa seems to be very young, maybe even a baby.
Okay. So right now it looks like they are in a very large cage and they've got quite a bit of choice, and they appear to be chewing on, looks like a bit of vegetable. So what are they eating right there?
That's celery leaves. That's Huevo's favorite snack. And Luxa never really liked any kind of fresh food until she came into the cage with Huevo. And now she's interested in all kinds of things.
Oh, he's being a good example. Yeah, he's really going at that. So what is their normal diet? What are they normally eating?
Well, their basic diet's the AV cakes, and they also like fresh veggies like the celery, broccoli, romaine. I've tried other things, but that's pretty much their favorites.
Oh yeah, they're absolute favorites, which, wow, I have never seen a budgie be so enthusiastic about a piece of celery. Oh, and there you go. That's always fantastic. So are they as enthusiastic about toys as they are celery?
They're extremely playful. They like to swing on the swings and climb all around with the different toys. Huevo likes grass mats. The ones that have the straw looking grass mats. Huevo loves those. And they like the boing swing, the one that's made with the rope.
Oh yeah. Oh, and you can hear the little cheeps going on, which is super cute. I love budgie noises.
They also like those little twine balls that they can take apart.
Oh yeah, I know just the ones you're talking about. Yeah, they sound like a really playful bunch. Are they hand tame at all?
Well, not exactly, but Huevo will eat from your hand. If there's no food in the cage and you come in with food, he'll be like, hey, I'm gonna eat that. Luxa, she won't come to the hand, but since she's so young, it's a good chance that she could be trained to be hand tamed, if the adopter is patient and has a gentle touch.
Yeah, just need a little bit of time and a little bit of practice to get them hand tame again. And I'll remind people, if you do have any questions about these two birds, the birds we've already seen, or any of the birds in the future, please just ask in the Q&A tab and we will make sure to answer them as soon as possible. Okay, so do they have any special needs or special requirements or a specialized cage setup or anything like that?
No, but they do enjoy having the double flight cage where they can fly back and forth. Neither one of them have their wings clipped, so they enjoy flying.
Oh yeah, it seems like they're big flyers. We actually saw them do a little bit of a loop-de-loop on the bottom of the screen a little while ago there. So one question I'll ask, would you say these are good beginner birds?
Well, yes, because budgies are a good option for anyone who doesn't have experience with larger birds like parrots. However, the term beginner bird might be confusing to some, and it might be an issue of semantics because you shouldn't start them, you shouldn't start off with budgies if you just plan to trade them in, because these birds can live 15 to 20 years, and they need a committed long-term home, just like any other bird.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, we definitely do want these to go to a good, committed, long-term home. Even though there are larger parrots, a lot of people think of budgies as being kind of a different kind. Budgies are very similar in a lot of ways to the larger types of parrots that we're going to be seeing, like the one we just saw, Kelly. They're not too far off, and a lot of people unfortunately do treat them as a little bit disposable, which is always really sad to see. So we just seeing them playing right there. Did you have any fun stories about them?
Well, they like to sing and dance when I have on music. They love that. Also, when I was setting up this cage, I was trying to find some interactive toys to make it fun for them. And I had a jump rope that one of the handles was broken on, and I cut off the handles and I strung it from one end to the other. And you see that what they're standing on and balancing on, that's actually a jump rope.
Oh, I was wondering what that was.
Happens to be their favorite perch.
I mean, it sure seems like they like them. I think they've been on it pretty much the entire time we've been talking.
I think it's good core exercise because they're balancing on it.
Oh yeah, nice little. Oh, and we're seeing them looks like they're going to be eating some. Yeah. So do they bathe at all?
I do the spritzer, like I spray them once or twice a week, or at the minimal 2 times a month.
Okay. Generally, we say we want to spritz birds as much as possible. Some birds will like to bathe themselves, some not necessarily. So with that, I will actually say thank you. And we are going to hop over and see another parakeet, actually a pair of parakeets. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And there you are. Oh, we've got 2 and one has a leg up. Hi, Natasha.
Oh, this is Katie, and that's Penelope in the front. She is our real star for today. Cupid, the yellow and green budgie in the back, was featured last month, but she's super shy, and Penelope is super friendly. So I made them cage mates to see if we could get Cupid to be a little more brave with people, and it's kind of working.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I just think they look super cute, and they've got the nice greens in the background. So how did these 2 come to, or I guess, how did Penelope come to Mikaboo since Cupid's already had his time?
Penelope came from an animal shelter. She had a couple kinds of fungal infections when she first came in. So she is one of those birds that you talked about in the beginning. Why are our vet bills as high as they are? She had 2 types of fungal infection, and one we were able to treat with medication at home, but for the other one, she actually had to have an inpatient stay at the vet for about a week. She's all healthy now, but she had a rough time of it. Whatever happened before she ended up at the shelter, but fortunately then she came to Mikaboo and got the care she needed.
Oh yeah. They're just preening right now, and that is so cute. So with a name like Penelope, I am assuming they're female. Do we know that for sure?
Yes, we're pretty certain that both of these birds are female, and you may see as they look at us head on, their cere, the little fleshy part above their beak, is on Cupid, it's a brick red color right now, which is what a female who's in a hormonal state looks like. Penelope has not gotten that obvious with it, but from her cere, we've also been able to tell that she's most likely a female bird.
Do we know how old Penelope is?
We believe that she's under a year just because she still has the completely black eyes. She doesn't have the white eye ring showing yet. And she still has some bars on the top of her head.
Oh, so I see we've got some plant life in the background. What is that, and what do they normally eat?
So that is broccolini that was bolting, and I thought it was dill, but as they eat more and more of it, I'm realizing that it's actually fennel. I have both in my yard, and they're really close to each other, and I picked the wrong plant, but they like both. It doesn't matter, but I'm more of a fan of the smell of the dill, so that was what I had planned for the afternoon. So they eat a lot of kinds of vegetables. They do prefer leafy greens over others, but I do try and get them some slices of sweet potato and carrot because vitamin A is also very good for them. And then bear with my disembodied hand for a moment here. This is a nutrient cake, which is their base diet. It's a mix of seed and pellet held together in a moist binder, and it provides a pretty good base diet for the smaller birds. And Penelope is going to now act, of course, like she's terrified of me for
Penelope's
about a half a second.
Is trying to decide if they want to go for it, and meanwhile, Cupid is really, really, really into that dill.
Yes.
Or sorry,
Penelope
no,
is holding. Yeah, Penelope is holding out for millet.
Is that their favorite thing?
Oh yes. Most of I've fostered over 3 dozen budgies now, and I'd say 95% of them love millet, and the other 5% just don't know what it is.
Just they love millet, they just don't know it yet.
Yes.
So do either of these, Penelope or Cupid, need any sort of special care, or are they in a standard budgie setup?
They're in a standard budgie setup. They would be much happier in the glorious cage that Natasha just showed us, and Peggy's as well. The cage they're in right now is really just Mikaboo's very minimum size requirement for budgies, which is a bit under 3 feet long. So you can see them flying around a little bit, but this cage isn't really big enough for them to truly fly around. And I don't intend to keep them in it much longer. If they're not adopted soon, I'm going to move them into a big flight cage.
So I just saw, so is that a toy in the back left, or is that just a decoration?
It's a toy. It is one of those palm shredder toys. It's just various bright colors. And these girls love shreddy toys. So when they don't have fresh vegetables to destroy, they're going after the palm toys instead.
Well, that makes sense. And I am hearing a lot of chatter from Penelope. Are they noisy or loud at all?
I think Penelope is just a bit closer to being an adult budgie hen than Cupid is. Budgie girls tend to be a little on the squawky side, but they're also incredibly curious, passionate. They love to explore. They have a lot to say. So I think,
oh yeah, she definitely has a lot to say right now.
And I realized I didn't actually give a full answer to one of your earlier questions about any special care. They do not need any special care, but if Penelope turns around again, you'll see that her wings were clipped really severely. And she's just got a few full flight feathers starting to grow in, but she forgets that she can't fly. So until her wing feathers grow in again, she can't be too high off the ground, or she may launch herself and her wings let her down.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do see that sometimes. A well-clipped bird should still be able to fly, but not necessarily gain height. So if, for example, they do exactly what Penelope does and decide to throw themselves off the rope, they can flutter safely down to the floor. And yeah, unfortunately, it looks like Penelope's have been trimmed so short that they're just going to drop, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's a short-term problem.
Yeah. How short is short-term? Do we have any idea of when they'll be molting?
She's getting a bit of a pinhead look right now, actually. And she has got 2 flight feathers here on her left side that you can see pointed toward us right now that have grown in. So I
So
don't know
Penelope's
whether
on their
it'll all
way.
be in one mold or it'll take two, but she will have some better balance and ability to glide a little bit very soon. I'm not sure how long it will take
That
to
sounds
get
good.
all her flight feathers back.
Oh, I'm sure she'll be a lot happier with that. You definitely want.
Yeah.
So I'll again remind people, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask in the Q&A. We'll try and answer them right away. That said, you've been pretty comprehensive on all this. Do you have any fun stories about these two?
Penelope was on oral medications when she first came into Mikaboo, and she's very tame. She'll happily step up on your hand, sit with you. She likes to hang out on the corner of my laptop when I have the screen open and critique my work. But she would shriek while I was medicating her. And I was holding her in my hand. I could feel her heart rate wasn't even elevated, but she was mad about it. And she would shriek. So every night, my husband would come running into our spare bathroom where she was being quarantined, sure that I was doing something terrible to this budgie. And he would arrive just as we were done with the medication, and then he would give her some millet, and she would sit on his hand for a while and grind her beak.
Oh,
So she's a big talker.
I mean, she sounds like a big talker and she looks like a big preener. She's really going at it.
She's a super fun bird. And since these budgies are both young, they both really do like toys. And like Penelope just discovered the bell on that swing with the rope circle swing. And she's been just sitting on the swing and bopping the bell a lot in the last few days.
Well, that just sounds super cute. All right, so thank you very much, Katie. We are going to move on to our next bird.
Yes, and in fact, that means that I get to turn the tables and ask you some questions about a conure named Coco.
Yeah, so Coco is a little bird. You're going to see a little video up there of Coco from Coco's foster. Coco is an older, they're 26 years old, dusky head conure, which is about the size, it's a little bit bigger than a green cheek and a little bit smaller than a sun conure, if anyone is familiar with those two sides. They were surrendered to Mickaboo along with another bird who has now been adopted, who is not a conure, just two different kinds of birds. They had older couple who were moving and unfortunately were not able to take their birds with them. So they trusted Mickaboo with these birds to help us find good forever homes for these two.
So we must know quite a lot about Coco given their age and history. Do we know if she's a boy or a girl? And I also wonder if our audience has any questions, because certainly type them in the Q&A chat.
Yeah, so we do know for sure that Coco is a girl, and we know this in the most definitive way possible because they have laid an egg in the past, and that's pretty indicative.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah, there's definitely no question when there's an egg in the cage. No question at all. Yeah, we know a ton about Coco. It's always really nice when a bird gets surrendered and we have a very comprehensive bit of information on everything there is to know about a bird. So for example, we know their diet, we know their like full medical history, we know that they were covered at night, we know they used to have a night cage, we know pretty much everything about them.
Is this, and this looks like they're in their cage during this video, right? It looks like it's pretty big cage.
When this video was taken, Coco had only recently arrived. Like even right now, I think they've been about 2 months with their current foster. So they were a little bit shy at first, and they did not want to come out of their cage at first. They were almost exclusively in the cage, but over time, and you'll see right there, over time, they would leave the door open while they were supervised, and Coco would start exploring out onto the top of the cage, onto perches placed on the outside of the cage. And now they will play around. They've started stepping up. They've started, being friendly around the family. And we kind of say that basically every week, the amount of time they are willing to be away from their cage increases as they become more and more comfortable.
Wow. So I'm gonna let the audience behind the curtain for a second here and say it sounds like Coco's made some pretty big improvements in getting comfortable, even in the few weeks since we did a practice for this adoption fair.
Oh yeah, it's always really nice, and you do see this a lot. Birds get very uncomfortable when they move. It is a really stressful thing moving from, like, even for humans, moving from place to place is really stressful, but for birds who maybe don't really understand what's going on, it's super stressful. They were almost a complete shut-in when they first arrived. Like when I first spoke to the foster after they arrived, they were like, I'm not sure how tame they're, because they're completely in their cage all the time. They do not want to come out. And just every week has been a really nice update as they become more and more comfortable, are more willing to, interact with the foster. And they're really just coming into themselves again, which is really nice to see.
That's wonderful. That's really great news. So we do have an audience question here. Is her egg laying chronic, and how do you stop it? So this might be a great time for us to talk a little bit about hormone management.
Yeah, hormone management. So no, their egg laying is not chronic. They haven't laid one with the foster or anything like that. It was just in the past they have laid eggs. That said, while we can't spay or neuter a bird for reasons which I feel are fairly obvious based on the size, it's basically a matter of minimizing things that can trigger hormonal behaviors. So for birds, that means getting 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night that is not disturbed, because during breeding season, they would be awake longer effectively. So longer days mean time to, start making a nest, laying eggs, which is actually another thing you can do to avoid hormonal behavior. A lot of bird owners want to give their bird a nest because, of course, birds go in nests. But this is actually a really hormonal thing. So you don't want to give them a nest. You don't want to give them nesting materials. You don't want to give them one of those snuggle huts or anything, because a lot of conures actually are cavity nesters. A lot of them don't build the kind of stick and twig nests that you would imagine when you think of a nest. They go into small cavities and lay their nests in there.
Yeah, budgies do that too. And we once had a rescue that someone started with 4 budgies and called us when they had 80, and it was a cavity nesting thing. So yeah, that's
this cage
definitely something to stay away from. Anyone who's got one of those snuggle huts who's watching right now, please reconsider. We'll be happy to talk to you about other fun things you can do instead. Yeah,
this cage actually gives a really good view of a nestless environment. You have a whole bunch of toys. You've got the swing. You've got wood bits they can chew on. They actually have these really nice natural sticks that run across the cage that the bird can walk along, which is always really nice. They also jut out the front so that when the bird is out, Coco can sit on the outside part of the stick and can perch. And yeah, they will just sleep in the night on one of those sticks. It's not an issue. They don't need a tent or a hut or anything to sleep in.
Right.
They're just used to sleeping on top of one of those sticks.
So speaking about this nice cage setup, and I'm looking at some of the toys in the background. Does Coco have any favorites? Favorite toys? So
Coco, along with, as far as I am concerned, pretty much every conure ever, is a big fan of bells. Because every conure I've ever interacted with is huge on bells. They also really like cat balls that have the little bells inside. They love picking those up and throwing those around, and they make a nice jangle noise. With those, though, you do have to be careful and make sure that the toy doesn't end up broken or that the bird can't get access to those bells, because those bells are not terribly bird safe. They can get their beaks stuck in them, but they're fun to play as long as they're supervised.
Yeah, and that's the kind of bells that I had in the budgie cage too. And I had meant to mention that I do try and inspect that bell at least weekly and make sure it's not getting any damage. And conure beaks are stronger than budgie beaks.
Oh yeah, conure beaks can be very strong, and you will see them. They're great escape artists. Coco, not so much. Coco's been pretty, well, Coco currently mostly wants to, they do like their cage still. So they're not trying to get out of it. But with any conure or really any bird, you do want to be inspecting the toys to make sure that there aren't, for example, oh, and there's one of those bells going off the back of the cage. You do want to make sure that the toys are all intact, that there's no chunks coming off them, that there's not anything the bird can get tangled in, for example.
So one thing we haven't talked about, and very thematic with that hand in the corner of the picture, what is Coco's diet like?
So Coco originally came in, they were eating Supreme pellets, and they are a fantastic eater. They love fruits, they love grains, they love everything. They are just, there are some birds where they're very picky and they're like, I want this one food and I refuse to eat anything else. That said, Coco does not have that problem. They're eating their pellets as like their main diet. They really enjoy a little bit of almond, a little bit of cashew is kind of their main treat, the thing they really love if they're doing training or anything like that, or if they're doing a good behavior that the foster wants to like reward. It's generally a little bit of almond or a little bit of cashew, and they love that, which I believe is what they're eating right now.
Looks like it. So we're coming toward the end of our time with Coco. So I'd like to remind the audience, if you have any questions, type them in the Q&A. And do you have any fun stories about Coco that you'd like to share?
I have the cutest story. Coco absolutely loves, and this is a behavior we believe from the previous owner, Coco loves getting kissed on the head. And they will like bend their head down, just put their head down, and then basically be begging for you to give a little, just a little mwah on the back of their head or above the back of their head. They absolutely love that. And at night, they will not go to bed. They will absolutely refuse to go to bed until you have done this several times to prove how much you love them. So they will just walk up and put their head down, and you'll go, mwah, and then they'll look up at you, and then they'll put their head back down. That means they want more. And you got to do it a couple times until they are, they've satisfied that you've given them enough love and attention. And then they'll go back inside their cage, which is so cute. Another really just cute, fun one. Sometimes if they've decided they haven't been out long enough, because the foster was trying to work within Coco's own needs. So Coco would start establishing that they wanted to be out longer because they would go to put Coco back in the cage, and Coco would just refuse to step up into the cage. Coco would just be like, no, thank you, and just grip on harder with their nails until they were withdrawn. And then they were like, okay.
So Coco sounds like a bird who knows what she wants and has a lot of really nice behaviors, and it's pretty healthy and getting more comfortable in her new home.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
One thing I should mention is that while Coco is technically an older bird, they're 26 years old, which sounds very old, especially for a conure. Dusky head conures, it's hard to tell. A lot of bird lifespans are very inconsistent, and there's not a lot of good data, but they can easily live to be 40 years old with good diet and good care. So they're not elderly, they're just older.
Sure. Seasoned.
Experienced. They're very experienced in demanding kisses from people and collecting almonds as payment for their cuteness.
Well, thank you so much for introducing us to Coco.
Thank you very much for letting me talk about Coco, because I think they are the cutest little bird. All right, so that said, that is the last bird that we have to talk about today. So we do have time for a little bit more questions. If anyone has any questions that they want to ask, the Q&A tab is still open and will continue to be open until we wrap up today, or even a little bit after. That said, if you fell in love with one of the birds, please contact us and let us know. If you haven't started the adoption process, you can get started by signing up for a basic bird care class at Mikaboo.org. It's under the classes tab, and it's offered every 2 weeks. The next class is actually a week from today, and we're hoping to see everyone there. If nobody here seemed like the right bird, you can take a look at others on our website at Mikaboo.org. There are a lot of birds who need their forever homes. If you arrived right at the start, you probably saw the pictures of some of those in our opening intro video. And that's it. Just a few more things before we sign off. Thank you for attending the May edition of Mikaboo's Virtual Adoption Fair. We'll be doing these events regularly and are planning on another one at a future date. You can check in on that at the events tab on our website, just for a little bit more info. Second, please remember that we are a donation-funded nonprofit, and you can support this work of parrot rescue, including the care for all the birds you met today at mikaboo.org/donate. It's up there. We'd be really grateful for your support. Third, if you have any ideas or comments on how we can improve for next time, please mention them in the Q&A tab or send us an email. We're always looking to improve. One question we actually did get was how to sign up for the class. This is covered on the website. It's a little web form. The class is all done via Zoom now. Once you have signed up, you will get an email. It will remind you several times, actually. I believe you get one about the day before and then about an hour before. The class generally takes about 4 hours, I think is what we say now. It is very exhaustive, has a ton of fantastic information, and we get lots of positive feedback, even from people who've had birds for years, there is so much to know about birds, and our knowledge of bird care has really come so far. I'm sure everyone who's had birds for a long time can remember what bird care was like 20, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. Pretty much every year, it feels like there's some new bit of information that we've learned that really helps these birds live nice, long, and really fulfilled lives. And last but not least, I do want to extend a huge thank you to our foster parents and their birds for being brave enough to come on video, and to the other volunteers who've provided technical support and kept this event running smoothly. Please stick with us through the credits to see who they all were. We're also going to keep monitoring the Q&A for a bit longer in case you have any questions that we haven't answered yet. And now, roll credits.